Tonight we're learning about a possible second abduction attempt in Bridgeton. Good evening, I'm Steve Savard. The city of St. Louis is averaging 5,000 violent crimes a year. In 2015, as of this airing, almost 160 people have been shot and killed, including 3 children and 26 women. For far too many families, the streets of St. Louis and surrounding communities are not safe. Law enforcement agencies around the country on alert tonight, but while there are no specific threats to St. Louis police, Chief Sam Dotson says he's taking extra precautions anyway. News 4's Lauren Traeger joining us now. And Lauren, what's being done to keep officers safe here in St. Louis? Tonight, we of course continue to track the developments out of Dallas, where 5 police officers were killed and 7 others injured. Investigators now say the gunman in that attack acted alone in the ambush during a Black Lives Matter demonstration. Police searched 25-year-old Micah Johnson's home, finding bomb-making materials, ballistic vests, rifles, and a personal journal of combat tactics. The military veteran was killed by a Dallas police bomb squad robot after an hours-long standoff. News 4 is always watching out for job seekers. We've learned another tech company plans to open operations here in St. Louis. Square is a mobile payment company. This will be its 8th office, but the first in the Midwest. Our Mugo Adigwe found out what this means for the St. Louis economy. New at 6, a St. Louis area family gets the boot from a plane in Charlotte on their flight home to St. Louis.
And they walked up to directly up to me and said that we were going to have to get off this plane.
After a 3-hour delay in Charlotte, Emily came in. Her mother and 4 children were on the plane as it started to taxi to the runway for their flight home. Her 17-month-old son, who was sitting on her lap, started getting fidgety, and a flight attendant noticed. In a story you'll see only on 4, Emily told me she was shocked and embarrassed by what happened next.
Last month, you'll remember, heavy rains caused flooding problems throughout the area, including in East St. Louis. Remember that video of the young students getting off the school bus, wading home through waist-high water? Well, Lauren Traeger's following up on the situation in East St. Louis. She's live, and Lauren, I understand, much better this time around so far.
Tomorrow, the Department of Justice is expected to deliver its report on the Ferguson Police Department and their handling of the Michael Brown shooting. The report is expected to claim that the department has a racial bias. News 4's Deanna Zoga is live in Ferguson with more. Deanna? New tonight, a man who was kicked out for being intoxicated now faces charges for firing several shots near the Lumiere Casino. If you've been on social media in the past 24 hours, you know how upset many Rams fans are. In fact, you may be angry yourself. I've consoled a few. Hopefully I did a good job. But today, one local sports bar is sifting through the chaos in search of a silver lining. Alderman Boyd's nephew, 23-year-old Rashad Farmer, became one of those 105 homicide victims last Monday night when he was shot on Lotus Avenue. Mr. Boyd shared some emotional comments with us that night on News 4 at 10. But after my KMOV colleague Steve Perrin encouraged me to listen to the entire interview, I decided to post a significant portion of it on Facebook. The interview was raw, emotional, and passionate. In fact, given the circumstances, it may be the most compelling interview I've heard in my more than 21 years here at KMOV. I thought it would resonate with many on social media, but I had no idea how well received it would be. In 4 days, that post has reached almost 4 million. It's been viewed more than 1.3 million times. The comments have poured in. Many of you implored us to run the interview, all 3.5 minutes of it, on one of our newscasts. So tonight, we are.
I'm pleading and asking for young people to please put the guns down.
All right, so the big question, Alderman, is how do we use that passion and all these good intentions to make a difference, to influence the people who are actually committing the crimes, because they're not the ones who are receptive to your message.
Right.
Well, Larry, when the president touches down here tonight, he will see a vastly different Joplin than he saw when he visited last May 29th, 7 days after an EF5 tornado ripped through this town, doing $2.8 billion worth of damage. Now, make no mistake, the rebuild of Joplin is far from complete, but it is underway. Now, News 4 was the first to show you the extensive damage done in South St. Louis last night, but today we're getting a much better look at the storm's damage. Most of the damage was done on the 5600 block of Columbia. This is the area known, of course, as the Hill. Several homes had roof damage. Cars were also hit. A satellite dish slammed into a parked car in the street. Mayor Francis Slay was out to assess the damage today and told the residents they will get the help they need. Unfortunately, we do have a tragedy to report today. An Ameren worker was killed this morning about 10:30 at St. Anne as he was trying to work to restore power in that area. Now, Matt Cesny has been on this story all day. and joins us live from St. Anne with the very latest. Matt?
Steve Savard is in Joplin tonight with more for us. Steve?
Vicki, I'm in front of the destroyed St. John's Regional Medical Center, which really has become the symbol of the destruction done by the tornado 1 year ago today. Across the street is Cunningham Park, also heavily destroyed. Residents have gathered for a moment of silence, which will take place at 5:41 tonight, the exact moment the tornado touched down a year ago today. Across the street, up beyond where the fire truck is, that's where lifelong resident John DeGraff's house stood until a year ago today. He survived the tornado by going to a neighbor's basement. Both houses were blown away. Do you ever think, why am I still alive here when 161 people here in Joplin died?
I know why. It wasn't my time. It just wasn't my time. I had somebody watching over me that day. Those tears just come when you least expect it. So,
like a tornado.
Yeah.
Now, 10 months later, with another potentially violent summer looming, I reached out to Alderman Boyd to find out if he believes his comments, which were so well received by so many, have spurred change. We spoke as we walked to the scene of his nephew's murder on Lotus Avenue. Still needs to be done to reduce the number of scenes like we're looking at right here and the number of tragedies like Rashad's death.
Well, I think it goes back to one of the statements you made about opportunities.
And I would just ask you, Mr. Bruner, to take responsibility for what your team has now admitted that you did.
We have to take our final break. We want to make sure that we have time for your closing remarks. We're going to take our final break of the evening coming up. When we come back, we will have closing remarks. You're watching a live statewide broadcast of the Missouri GOP governor's debate from the campus of Lindenwood University in St. Charles. We're right back.
I would have done a lot of dunking just like that at Kirkwood High, but the dunk was illegal back in the 70s.
You played in the wrong era. It cost you. It cost you dearly.
The two-hand set shot was about all we could do.
And you were a master at it.
Limited my game.
You've overcome, though.
And Sharon, we'll hear from the Blues, who last night took a 2-0 lead on the Stanley Cup champion LA Kings. Maybe they could return the favor and sweep the Kings this year. Coming up next, the CBS Evening News with Scott Pelley.
You needed another reason to like Kevin Green. There it is right there. And if it feels like I'm a little bitter, it's because I'm a lot bitter.
Throw the objective journalism out the window with this, right?
I hope that Coliseum crumbles before they get to play the first game. Nobody in it, but I'd like to see it reduced to rubble before they get that first game played.
You better take us to break before he implodes. This is a very serious problem, but the right people have assembled to end the violence in the city. And when I say the right people have assembled, I don't just mean civic leaders, business community, and clergy. I mean each and every one of you watching this show.
Most of us are novices covering this kind of story. Now, Matt Chambers is a meteorologist by trade, by profession. He has extensive experience, but yet during that interview that Maggie was conducting with the airport director, when she said that the airport will be closed at least through tomorrow, that was your reaction. You were shaking your head back and forth as if I've never heard anything like that.
And I think I actually said out loud, yeah, sorry, we're going to close the airport this weekend.
Maggie, we've been focused on, and for good reason, because of all the damage on the main terminal. We have not talked about the East Terminal, the terminal that houses so many of those Southwest Airlines gates. How much, if any, damage was done to the East Terminal?
The U.S. Veterans Administration estimates that World War II veterans are dying at a rate of 430 a day. At some point, the reality is they'll all be gone, but should never be forgotten. One organization here in St. Louis is making sure they and other veterans understand how much their service really is appreciated. Greater St. Louis Honor Flight recently took 22 veterans of World War II and Korea to Washington, D.C. Photographer Eric Voss and I had the privilege of documenting that memorable day.
The day began the way it would end.
Thank you.
Appreciative strangers saluting 22 unassuming men. A police escort cleared the way to the nation's capital for the visiting VIPs.
To your right is the World War II Memorial. That's our first stop. 1, 2, 3. Nice work.
And the first order of business on this day.
Thank you, sir, for your service.
A group photo dripping with historical significance.
But I didn't realize there were so many people lost.
Melvin Betcher was part of the D-Day landing. He was one of 4 brothers to serve in World War II. All 4 returned home. Not all 4 experienced this.
What are your emotions being here today at the World War II Memorial with so many of you?
Unbelievable. I can't believe it. It makes me cry.
It's an emotional day for you?
Yeah.
don't realize how great a country this is until you go through something like this. Really is heartwarming.
A whirlwind tour of D.C. didn't slow down these 85 to 90-something men determined to see the memorials built in their honor and to remember those who didn't make it home.
Thank you for your service.
Along the way, they were thanked.
I'm really happy you're here.
Repeatedly.
Thanks for your service.
By young and old.
Just want to come and say thank you for your service.
Military.
Thank you for your service, sir.
And civilian.
You deserve it.
Marine veteran and Purple Heart recipient Ken Luttrell had family at his side when he saw the Iwo Jima Memorial for the first time. Luttrell was shot through the face in the epic battle that changed the course of World War II. A rush of emotions flooded in.
I'm sorry. It's rough. It's very emotional. But it's a beautiful memorial. But you have all these memories, and this brings them all back.
Before their flight home, a special delivery.
Davison!
Mail call.
Gene Dixon! Gruyere!
The highlight of their days in service, and still a highlight some 70 years later.
I am writing you this letter to thank you for your service.
I really love knowing that I'm safe.
Thank you for your role in helping to keep us all safe.
Back home at Lambert, one final stirring display of appreciation, saluting honor, dedication, and bravery. Quite a day, made possible by Greater St. Louis Honor Flight, which conducts 10 of these trips each year. And the execution is seamless. If you'd like to volunteer or make a contribution or know of a deserving veteran, the website is gsl.honorflight.org. Having revitalized Martin Luther King Drive is how he imagines a better St. Louis.
I have a dream today.
Martin Luther King Jr. was not the only one with a vision for the future.
This is called the Legacy Park.
How excited would you be to see this area transformed into what we see on that poster board?
That would be a dream come true.
Melvin White wants to change the way our country pays tribute to King's legacy.
I have a dream that my 4 little children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character.
The whole purpose of the park is to bring back culture and history to the neighborhood. We feel like the young youth today lost reality of our past.
Through his nonprofit, Beloved Streets of America, White is working to revitalize all streets named after the slain civil rights leader.
We have history museums. We want to introduce the area to urban agriculture. We want to have jazz clubs, restaurants.
White has visited streets across the country that bear Dr. King's name. A majority of them in predominantly African-American areas are plagued by crime.
If he were alive today, just to see his name placed on the street, such as the MLK streets around the country, I mean, he would be saddened by that.
Littered with trash and dilapidated buildings, White says Martin Luther King Drive in North St. Louis is one of the worst.
For his legacy to be represented with abandoned buildings, drugs, prostitution, his streets of all streets to be beautiful, beautiful, prosperous, and vibrant.
Under White's plan, work would begin here.
The project would cover 6.5 miles. 6.5 mile stretch.
Dr. Martin Luther King Drive.
Here in St. Louis.
Starting
at Hodemont.
Just back from here.
That's city limits of Hodemont, all the way downtown. We'll break it down into 3 phases. Once you break it down, each phase will have its own dollar amount. That's what we're working on right now.
But the project would stretch much farther than city limits.
We're hoping to get East St. Louis involved as well. And if you get East St. Louis involved, the only thing separates us is the Martin Luther King Bridge. This would be the longest MLK street in the country, which would be approximately 10 miles long.
White says the St. Louis area has pulled together for similar projects in the past. Filled with bustling businesses, he's inspired by the revitalization of the Del Mar Loop.
It's kind of like, hey, why can't Martin Luther King look like that?
This seems like an enormous project.
It is.
In order to succeed, White says people from all races must get involved.
You're appealing to people who never even drive down this 6.5 mile stretch of Martin Luther King Drive. Never been here. I know it's going to take, a helping hand from everyone. It's bigger than St. Louis. It's over 900 streets that bears Dr. King's name. And we want to use St. Louis as a model for the rest of the country.
I have a dream today.
Well, we've made it easy for you to get involved with the revitalization of Martin Luther King Jr. Drive. You can find a link at KMOV.com.